Guilty Crown begins with a man named Shuu, walking toward an empty room in his school. He used to be alone there. Then he saw a woman wearing a red dress singing sweetly. He instantly realized that the woman's name was Inori, a vocalist from the famous group Egoist. Suddenly a group of GHQ members came there and arrested Inori. They tell Shuu that she is a member of the terrorist known as the Funeral Parlor. Then they took her away from there. But he feels sad because he can't help her. Then Inori's robot named Funeral comes to meet Shuu. The robot asked for help to deliver an item called the Void Genome to a place on its screen. The robot said that at night Inori managed to steal the Void Genome item from the GHQ member's laboratory building. After that, she immediately stored the item on her body. Shuu agreed to help him and went to the place. But on the way, he was blocked by a group of thugs who wanted to take Funeral. Then a man named Guy came to help Shuu. It turns out that Guy is not alone. He comes with the troops behind him. He also knows Inori and Funeral. When he asked Shuu about Inori's condition, GHQ troops suddenly shot at them. It seems the GHQ troops know that the Void Genome is in their hands. Guy ordered Shuu to take the item and protect it. He ran after Guy's orders. On the way, Shuu saw Inori walking limply after getting out of the car that took her. Without thinking, he ran to save her. Unexpectedly, a robot shot toward him and hit the Void Genome. After the item broke, Shuu saw a flash of an unfamiliar memory. He also gains the power to take a sword from Inori's body. Then he used the sword to destroy the enemy troops in front of him. After he defeated the enemy, the sword suddenly returned to Inori's body. He was confused by what was happening. Then there was a man who communicated with Shuu through Funeral. The man asks him to take Inori away. It turns out that the man is Guy. Guy is the leader of the Funeral Parlor, who is Inori's superior. At that time, Guy was disappointed because Inori let the Void Genome be used by Shuu. Because people who use the Void Genome will have the power of a king. So that person can bring out the hidden power of one's heart and turn it into a weapon called Void. Every human has a different Void power. That power is said to be able to match the power of a god. The Void Genome was supposed to be used by Guy, but because of that incident, Shuu finally got the power. Then, Guy forces him to fight using that power. Suddenly Guy's cell phone rings. He gets news that the GHQ troops have taken several civilians who support Funeral Parlor hostage. At that time, the GHQ troops were led by Darrell, who had a slaying stance. He ordered Shuu and his team to go there to save them. Arriving at that place, Shuu saw the cruelty of GHQ with his own eyes. The GHQ troops that attacked this time are called antibody units. They are allowed to kill civilians suspected of having contracted the deadly virus without going through the testing process. However, because of Guy's strategy, the Funeral Parlor troops managed to lock up and surround the antibody unit. But it turns out that antibody troops have installed poison gas underground that can kill civilians instantly. They force Guy to come out of hiding. He came out and had a plan. He asked Shuu to use Inori's Void to defeat Darrell in the back line. After that, Shuu took Darrell's Void and used it. The Void can create a power that can reflect various enemy attacks. Thanks to the Void, he managed to reflect the attack of the antibody unit, thus destroying their own group. Thanks to his services, Shuu was praised by Guy and received praise from members of the Funeral Parlor. A few days after the incident, Shuu returned to his life. At school, he was surprised by Inori's arrival, who became a new student in his class. The students were excited when they realized that she was a famous vocalist, but they didn't know that she was actually a member of the Funeral Parlor. At that time, he pretended not to know Inori and looked away from her. After school hours, Shuu immediately returned to his apartment, but he was surprised to see Inori beside him and could open his door. It turned out that Funeral had modified his bedroom door so she could enter. He only lived there alone because his mother was busy at work. At night, suddenly, a man named Yahiro visits Shu's apartment, but he is surprised when he sees Inori there. She immediately asked him out. It turned out that Guy was waiting for them in Shu's apartment area to give them information. He said that one of Shu's schoolmates saw them defeating the antibody unit yesterday. Guy ordered Shuu to find the person with the help of his power. He can know the person through the void in the person's body. The next day at school, Shuu started checking his friends' voids. Luckily, when he took their void, they would lose their memory for a while, so that his actions are safe and no one knows about it. Finally, he finds out the person Guy is referring to is Yahiro. Upon learning this, Inori wants to kill Yahiro, but Shuu begs her to forgive him. Then, they agreed to hide their identities, and Guy agreed to release Yahiro. The next day when Shuu and Yahiro were on their way to school, it turned out that Yahiro had trapped him. Yahiro sold him to the GHQ troops, and they took him to the GHQ headquarters. Upon arrival, Shuu was interrogated by a man called Major Segai. He wants to know about Shu's involvement with the Funeral Parlor members. However, Segai and his troops receive reports that Guy will attack the GHQ headquarters to save his captive members. Segai also took the opportunity to influence Shuu. He says Funeral Parlor will save one of the captive serial killers, Kido, who killed thousands of people. He also gives Shuu a tool that can track his whereabouts. He wants Shuu to use the device when he is with Guy so that the GHQ troops can capture Guy. If Shuu refuses, then Segai will use Inori to replace him. Sometime later, Guy, disguised as a lawyer, came to see Shuu. Funeral Parlor immediately hacked the prison system to free the prisoners because Guy wanted to save Kido. But Shuu, already influenced by Segai's instigation, directly questions the true purpose of Funeral Parlor and refuses to help him. On the other hand, Inori is on her way to help Shuu, but she is heading to the wrong and dangerous place. After knowing this, he rushed to help her. During the chaotic situation, Shuu meets Kido, who is released by Guy. He immediately took Kido's void, which has anti-gravity power. At the same time, Shuu saw Inori free fall from the top of the building towards him. He uses the void to save her. When he captured her, he used her void to fight all the enemies, so they managed to escape from the prison. He returns to follow Guy, but he still has the tracking device Segai gave him at that time. When they arrived at the Funeral Parlor's headquarters, Guy introduced Shuu to all his members. He says that Shuu currently has the power of a king, so he will be the core and center of their strategy to fight GHQ. Within 3 days, Funeral Parlor will perform an important operation to seize an item called leukocytes. Guy also ordered Ayose to give Shuu basic training to carry out the mission. At first, Shuu only saw Ayose as a disabled girl using a wheelchair and looked down on her. But after she attacked him, he immediately fell and passed out. After Shuu came to his senses, the tracking device Segai had given him was gone. It turned out that the tool was in Ayose's hand because she thought it was just an ordinary pen. He panicked and asked her to return the pen. But she didn't want to just return the pen. She promised to return the pen if he passed the training. Finally, he did the special training with her over the next few days. Then one night, when Inori was alone in the apartment, Shuu came and wanted to get to know her better. He was flattered that she had helped free him from prison yesterday. But she says everything she does is an order from Guy, and only Guy owns her. Hearing this, Shuu was surprised. Then, he also saw Inori enter Guy's room alone. Seeing that made him feel very heartbroken. Then Ayose explained that Guy and Inori were used to sharing a room. Actually, Inori is taking care of Guy in his room because he hid his deteriorating health condition from the other members. A few days later, the graduation training for Shuu began. At that time, he had to deal with a robot controlled by Ayose inside. He had to get past the robot and reach the vehicle behind him. At first, Shuu seems to be having a hard time, but he decides to use Void, one of the spectators who have the power to cover Ayose's view. He managed to get past the robot and reach the vehicle. So officially, he was accepted as a member of the Funeral Parlor. Then Ayose also returned his tracking pen. Suddenly, a female member named Tsugumi gives emergency news that GHQ members have fired leukocytes towards Point Delta, where Guy is. It turns out that leukocytes are a satellite that can shoot with tremendous power, even being able to make holes in the earth. Fortunately, Guy still survived the attack even though they had to lose all weapons supplies. After that, he told his strategy to stop the leukocytes. He wants Shuu to use Kenji's anti-gravity void to deactivate the leukocyte control core. But since the mission would be very dangerous, it was likely that 1 in 3 members would die. Hearing this, Shuu refused to do so. He doesn't want his friend to die if he fails to complete the mission. Then he resigned from the mission and left them. After that, Inori came to see him and persuade him to undertake the mission. She asks him to listen to Guy's explanation regarding the mission. Because he likes her, he melts and wants to listen to her words. Eventually, Shuu meets Guy, but the two of them fight instead. And finally, he can trust Guy again and want to be involved in the mission. Then they immediately carried out reconnaissance to attack the GHQ headquarters to stop the leukocytes. Initially, everything went according to plan. Even Shuu, Inori, Guy, and Kenji managed to get into the GHQ headquarters, where the leukocyte control core was located. Then Shuu immediately took Kenji's void to attack leukocytes. It turned out that Dural had known of their existence and was waiting for their presence. Dural uses a robot to shoot them brutally, but one of the shots hit the control core, so one of the leukocyte satellites fell to Earth. It is estimated that the satellite will fall in Tokyo, so Tokyo residents are at risk. In that emergency, Guy asked Shuu to give him a tracking pen from Segai yesterday. Actually, he already knew that the pen could track their whereabouts. At the same time, Segai came before them. Guy makes a pact with Segai that he will help him save Tokyo if he is willing to let Shuu go and forgive his mistakes. The pen is connected to one of the leukocyte satellites. If the pen is pressed, the satellite will shoot a laser at the pen. Guy knew Segai's cunning from the start, so he wanted to use the pen to destroy the leukocyte satellite that fell before. But to do that, Guy must sacrifice himself to be hit by a laser attack. Knowing this, Shuu is very sorry and will help him. Then Shuu uses Inori's void to help him. Shuu plans to shoot down all the leukocyte satellites. When his weapon was level with the satellite, he immediately took out his power and managed to destroy the entire satellite. Then, he apologized to Guy and became friends again. Shuu and Inori were on the train heading to school a few days later. Upon arrival at school, another student taunts him after learning that he was captured by GHQ. Only Kayahare and Sota want to defend him. But it turns out that there is one more female student named Arisa who defends him. Arisa is the heir to the well-known technology company Kohoin Group. Arriving at home, Shuu was surprised by the presence of his mother, Haruka. She was confused because he was caught bringing a woman to stay there. Luckily, his mother didn't mind Inori's whereabouts. His mother is even close with her. Meanwhile, at Funeral Parlor's headquarters, Guy receives a report that their stockpile of weapons is running low due to being destroyed by the leukocyte laser. He had to think hard about how to find funding for their war. It didn't take him long to find a plan. In the evening, Guy asks Shuu to infiltrate a luxury yacht. He plans to have a meeting with the important people on the ship. It turns out that the person Shuu will meet is Arisa's grandfather, the owner of Kohoin Group. Guy wants his organization to work with them. But Shuu is surprised when he sees his mother with Arisa's grandfather. His mother works as a researcher and has a close relationship with GHQ members. Plus, Arisa was also there and noticed his existence. He was afraid his disguise would fail, so he ran away from them. Guy, who was in disguise, took his eyes off Shuu. Guy also immediately teased Arisa to make her blush. Shuu, who was hiding, got a phone call from headquarters. Sugumi informs him that GHQ will soon attack the cruise ship with missiles. The GHQ members know that he and Guy are on the ship. He approached Guy, who was disguised as a ship's servant. He told Guy the information from the headquarters. Guy orders Shuu to get off the ship and wait for him because he already has a plan to save the ship. After that, he invites Arisa to the ship's deck because Shuu must use her void, which has strong protective power. Shuu also uses the void to block missile attacks from GHQ. Finally, they all survived without realizing that Arisa's grandfather saw their actions. Arisa's grandfather called the Funeral Parlor headquarters to inform them that he was willing to finance the organization. The members at the base were overjoyed to hear the good news from him. Sometime later, Guy informs Shuu that they will infiltrate the GHQ headquarters in Oshima. To infiltrate, he says that they need void from Sota. When Shuu is at school, he pretends to take Sota, Hare, Kanon, and Inori on vacation to the beach in Oshima. He is asked by Guy to use Inori to tease Sota because he is Inori's fan. Arriving at the beach, he was pensive while looking at them. He objected to doing that. Then Hare came to Shuu and asked him to talk. Hare seems to like him and takes him for a walk. At night, Sota takes Inori to the park to show her a video he made for her. Suddenly, he revealed his love to her. Unbeknownst to them, Shuu was watching them and looked jealous. He ran and took Sota's void while shouting that Inori was his, making Sota faint. Unbeknownst to Shuu, the Funeral Parlor members were also there. They all heard his words and approached him while mocking him. Guy immediately invited them to head to the GHQ headquarters. Shuu carried Sota to take him there. He immediately used the camera-shaped Sota's void to open all the locked doors and systems. Arriving at the GHQ headquarters, the item they were after had disappeared, brought by Kato, one of the GHQ members. But his actions seemed to be known by General Yan and other GHQ members. So, he was arrested and held in prison by Yan. The next day when Shuu came home from school by train, Hare was seen standing watching him. She invites him to walk alone and spend time together. Just as Hare was about to speak, they were run over by a man who got into the train with a medicine box. It turns out that the man is Yahiro, targeted by GHQ members for stealing illegal drugs. He will use the drug to cure his younger sister, June, who is infected with the Apocolypse Virus. That night Shuu calls Ayose to ask their organization to take care of June. But when he brought June to the pickup point, it turned out that the GHQ troops were already there. It seemed that they were still following and watching his movements. Then he used Yahiro's void to attack them. At that time, he had to return to fight with Duro, who used a robot. But when the fight was in progress, Duro caught June, but instantly the Apocalypse Virus moved to his robot body. Shuu immediately thrust Yahiro's void into the robot's body. Suddenly June entered Shu's mind. She was in chains and said she wanted him to cut the chain of her life with Yahiro's void. She didn't want to bother Yahiro anymore. Shuu was forced to obey. Then, June died peacefully. After Yahiro regained consciousness, Shuu told him about everything that happened when he passed out, including about June. From a distance, it looks like Hare is watching Shuu and Yahiro. She also saw all the events earlier and knew his power. The next day at school, Hare approached Shuu. At that time, he was still traumatized by June's death and didn't want to fight anymore. He doesn't want to be faced with a choice where he has to be willing to let one of his friends die. In the evening, Shuu and Inori will go on a mission to retrieve yesterday's items, but he failed to take her void because he was still thinking about what happened to June yesterday. So, the mission could not be carried out. The next day Ayose approached Shuu to advise him, but he ignored her. In the end, Guy went to Shuu to get him out of the funeral parlor, and even Inori left him. Guy and Inori also have to carry out the mission without his presence. She also looks sad. Arriving at the GHQ headquarters, they tried to infiltrate in search of yesterday's items. But the item in Yon's hand suddenly activated, and it turned out that Segai did it. Segai and Kato teamed up to seize the item and betrayed Yon. Segai sounded the item's resonance through the transmitting tower throughout the city. Instantly the townspeople contracted the Apocolypse Virus, just like in Lost Christmas 10 years ago. Guy also contracted the virus, and Yon was killed by Dural until the supreme leader of GHQ fell to Kato. Shu's mother, Kato's subordinate, tries to escape from the base, because she did not know his evil plan. Kato, who has led the GHQ, also announced to the entire city that all these events were the work of terrorists from the Funeral Parlor organization. He wants all citizens to hate their organization. Shuu, who heard the announcement, couldn't believe it. Moreover, Ayose said that the other members had lost, so that only Shuu can help Funeral Parlor. The next day when at school, Shuu seems to be thinking about something accompanied by Hare and Funel. After school, he calls his friends to come to his base. He asks for their help to use their void so he can help Guy and Inori, who are at the GHQ headquarters. Shuu also finally showed his strength in front of his friends. He admitted that he was a member of the Funeral Parlor. His friends initially thought the organization was a group of evil terrorists until he finally explained and informed them that the culprit was the GHQ organization. They finally agreed to help him and went to the GHQ headquarters. At the GHQ headquarters, Shu's mother works on a system so that Inori's singing can be heard throughout the city. Her voice can eliminate the virus that infects everyone in the city, including Guy. Shuu was even more eager to help them. Using his friend's void, he managed to infiltrate the GHQ headquarters. Finally, he managed to enter the room where Inori was, but suddenly there was a mysterious man behind her who took her void. It seems that the man also has the same king power as Shuu. The man slashed Inori's void to attack Shuu. Luckily Guy arrived on time and managed to save him by sacrificing himself. As for Inori, she was taken away by the mysterious man. It turned out that the mysterious man was Dart. Guy orders Shuu to go after them, as Dart wants to resurrect a woman named Mana at the expense of Inori. But when Shuu chases after them, Dart snaps his fingers, making Shuu remembers the memories of when he was a kid. At that time, Shuu and his older sister, Mana, found a boy who had fainted on the beach. She helps the boy and makes him a friend. It turns out that the boy is Guy. In his memories, he and Guy have been best friends since childhood. He was confused as to how he could forget such an important memory. After that, Shuu woke up. Suddenly in front of him was Kato standing beside Inori's helpless body. Kato said that Inori is a human created as a place to awaken Mana. Mana was the first human to be infected with the Apocolypse Virus. Kato's goal of generating her is to make Lost Christmas Part 2 and make all citizens infected with the virus. Shuu immediately tried to stop the rise of Mana, but she said that he could not stop her awakening. Moreover, he had rejected her love as a child. So, when they were little, Mana told him that she wanted to marry him when she grew up, but Shuu refused because they were brother and sister. While chatting, he saw Mana contracted the Apocolypse Virus on her cheek. After Shuu regained consciousness, Mana wanted to attack him, but Guy and Ayose came to help him. At that time, Guy told what really happened in the first Lost Christmas incident. So that night, Guy was at a church. He wants to tell Shuu about the truth and darkness within Mana. But before Shuu came, Mana had attacked him first. Shuu, who saw this, assumed she was a monster and stayed away from her. This triggered Mana's anger, so the virus inside her exploded and spread worldwide. Then, Guy chose to live his own life, and Shuu chose to forget his past memories. After Guy tells the story, Shuu gets a new king's power. He can expel the void from a person's body without making him faint. Guy also asked Shuu to take out the void in him. Then Guy uses the void to shoot Inori. It turns out that his void can remove other people's void from their bodies. As a result, Shuu uses Inori's void to fight his enemy, while Guy chooses to stop Mana's revival by sacrificing himself. Guy asked Shuu to stab his body and Mana simultaneously. Shuu, who had no other choice, obeyed Guy's orders. After he did, the place was destroyed while Guy and Mana disappeared. He took Inori away from there. They both could only cry over Guy's death. A few days after the incident, Tokyo was quarantined by the GHQ organization until the internet was cut off. Students who are at school are also prohibited from going home. Ayase and Tsugumi, who are members of the Funeral Parlor, disguise themselves as students at Shu's school. After that, the members of the Funeral Parlor dispersed, and their fate is still unknown. While still at school, Shuu told Yahiro about the change in his powers, because at this time, he can take other people's void without making the person faint. Yahiro tells him that his powers will be very useful in the future, especially during this quarantine. At night, their school is attacked by a group of people who want to snatch their food supplies. Shuu finally took out Ayase's void for his own use. Thanks to the power of the void, she can fly and help him fight against them. So, they can easily beat the group. On the other hand, Kato is at the GHQ headquarters announcing that the government will not help Tokyo residents infected with the virus and will seal them for 10 years. They have even built a giant wall that surrounds the area. The next day, the students at Shu's school panicked. They gathered in the school hall. They asked Arisa to settle this matter by using her power as the heir to Kohoin group to take them out. Thanks to her presence at the school, they are vaccinated every week. A few days later, the GHQ organization held a cleanup. They minimized the quarantine area by narrowing the barrier and killing everyone approaching the wall. The GHQ organization uses several remotely controlled routes to monitor them. The news made the students even more afraid. Even at their school, there were rumors about the existence of Funeral Parlor members disguised as fake students. If someone catches the member, they will be allowed to get out of the parapet. As a result of the rumors, Ayase and Tsugumi was finally caught and handed over to the GHQ members. Knowing this, Shuu did not remain silent. He approached them and said that these were all false rumors and that GHQ would not release them. One of the female students gave information to the GHQ organization to bring him, Tsugumi, and Ayase to the border wall. After that, the GHQ robot shot the female student along with them. It turned out that what they killed was just a copy of themselves, because Shuu used Tsugumi's void to trick them. After the matter was resolved, Yahiro proposed to all the students that Shuu be appointed their new chairman to replace Arisa's position. It turned out that all the students supported Yahiro's decision. Thus, Shuu officially became the leader of the school. Not long after, Yahiro can strategize plans to gather students based on their void power. The student with the most useful void will get special treatment and priority regarding food or vaccines, while the less useful will be used as a sacrifice. At first, Shuu did not agree with Yahiro's plan because he did not want to distinguish friends only from the power of void. Even he promised Sota not to carry out Yahiro's plan. But due to the dwindling availability of food and vaccines, he was forced to follow that plan. He was surprised when he saw that Sota's name was at the bottom of the list and was considered the most useless. He was alone in his school headquarters because he could not keep his promise to Sota, but Hare came to comfort him and hugged him to make him feel calmer. The next day, Shuu gets information that Sota and some of the lowest-ranking students have run away from school. Shuu, Yahiro, and Hare immediately followed them in a car to ask for an explanation. Sota replies that they are out to find a vaccine and prove that they are still useful. But their whereabouts are known by the GHQ organization robots, and they shoot them straight away. Some of the injured people were immediately treated by Hare. Suddenly, Sota approached Hare and asked her to repair the car using her void. While she is doing car repairs, she is shot by a GHQ robot. Shuu tried to help her but was also shot and seriously injured. After Hare woke up, she used her void to heal Shuu first, but her void was hit by a GHQ robot shot and instantly destroyed. At that time, the Apocolypse Virus immediately infects her body. Luckily, she still had the strength to heal Shuu. When Shuu woke up, he saw that Hare had died with the virus lodged in her body. Even her body instantly disappeared into granules. Shuu, who saw that, was crying loudly because she was the only person who loved and believed in him. After Hare's death, Shuu changed instantly. With a terrible face, he immediately took Inori's void and attacked all the GHQ robots. He also beat Sota for getting Hare killed. Even with his arrogance, Shuu said he would be the king. Sometime later, Arisa's grandfather seems to send one of his men named Argo to save Arisa. Argo is one of the remaining Funeral Parlor members. Arriving in Tokyo, he was very surprised to see the conditions there. He meets Shuu, but he is surprised by his current change, because Shuu is considered like a king in that school. All the students were very afraid and respectful of Shuu. Even he sadistically throws his friend, who is infected with the virus and is useless, into the sea. When he learns of Argo's arrival to retrieve Arisa, he stops him, because he doesn't want to lose Arisa, who has a special void. Tsugumi, who doesn't like Shu's character, now helps Argo to escape from the school. When Shuu finds out, the two of them end up fighting, but Argo managed to defeat him temporarily. And soon after, Yahiro came to help Shuu. He told Argo to stay away from Shuu. Suddenly a piece of iron fell from the sky and almost fell on Shu's female subordinates. He saved her on reflex, but the iron hit her void and destroyed it. After her void was destroyed, her body was immediately filled with the Apocolypse Virus, and then it was destroyed, just like Hare's incident yesterday. Finally, Shuu realized what had happened to Hare. It turns out that if the void is destroyed, the virus will attack their body to make it destroyed. He immediately took Argo's void and kept it. Even he used it to intimidate his subordinates. As a result, all the students there hated him even more. But Shuu doesn't seem to care about other people anymore. Moreover, he will soon carry out a plan to attack the border wall to escape from there. Suddenly a rumor spreads among the students that Shuu is hiding the fact that if their void is destroyed, they will die. Of course, this caused panic among the students. After Yahiro traced the rumors, it turned out that Arisa was the one who spread the news. It seems she wants to take Shuu down to reclaim her position. Long story short, the day of the attack on the border wall arrived. Shuu plans to destroy the transmitter machine on top of the Tokyo Tower. The machine that makes all GHQ robots can be controlled remotely. He immediately ordered other students to open his way there. Not long after, the battle between the GHQ robots and the students began. Many victims fell among the students, but thanks to Shu's skill in using other people's void, he manages to arrive at Tokyo Tower and destroys the machine. After that, all GHQ's robots stopped functioning. Then they all began to leave the border wall and unite. But Arisa instigated the other students to betray Shuu. Even Sota was among them. Sota pushed Shuu down a hole, and suddenly, Inori came to save him. However, she is shot in the back by one of the GHQ robots. It turned out that GHQ already knew Shu's plan, so they set up a trap. But Shuu is surprised when he sees the figure of Guy with GHQ. It turns out that Guy is not dead. He is resurrected by GHQ. Without further ado, he approached Shuu and cut his hand off. Then he snatched the power of the void genome from Shu's severed hand. Shuu, who saw his king's power disappear, immediately panicked. Then above them, there is a UN fighter plane that drops missiles to destroy Tokyo due to the spread of the Apocolypse Virus. Guy took out the king's power and took 3 voids from the people there to destroy the plane. By now, he has turned violent and unhesitatingly kills humans. He took Arisa away to return to Kato. Since then, the world seems to be in Guy's hands. He even threatened UN members and citizens worldwide to use the leukocyte satellite that had been hacked by Kenji. Guy forbids all countries to approach Tokyo. If they violate, they will be considered enemies and shot by the leukocyte satellite. The UN members were forced to comply with his wishes. Sometime after the incident, the GHQ troops came back to Tokyo. It seems that they were ordered by Guy to look for Inori's whereabouts. GHQ finally managed to find Inori hiding with Shuu in a building. Suddenly Guy and GHQ's vehicle is attacked by troops they don't know. It turns out that the troops are ordered by Arisa's grandfather, who wants Arisa to go home with him, but she prefers to be with Guy and shoots her own grandfather dead. Meanwhile, Inori, who was with Shuu, suddenly acted strangely. She felt that something was controlling her body from within, and it was something evil. When she feels pressed, she wants to surrender herself to the GHQ members so that Shuu can survive. She then made Shuu faint with her strength, then kissed him. After that, she went to face the GHQ members alone. She turned into a very terrible combat mode. Even though she can defeat the GHQ robots, Guy can easily stop and catch her. After Shuu wakes up, he realizes that Inori has gone to sacrifice herself. He made a plan to save her. He secretly approached Arisa, still in the quarantine area, to take her hostage. He asks her to tell him where Inori is. Suddenly from the monitor held by Arisa, Shuu heard that his mother had betrayed the GHQ organization and managed to bring the remaining void genome capsules. Knowing this, he forced Arisa to take him to find his mother. It turned out that his mother gave the capsule to Ayose. There also appeared to be Yahiro, Sota, Kanon, and Sugumi. His mother could have given the capsule to Shuu so his strength could return. But his mother didn't want him to suffer anymore because of his strength. Plus, there is a possibility that his body will reject the capsule, causing him to die. Suddenly their place is attacked by GHQ troops led by Segai. The capsule that his mother was carrying had a tracking device attached. Shuu, who was with Arisa, also saw the attack. He ran toward his mother. After they were pressed, Ayose agreed to Shu's mother's proposal to inject the capsule into her. But they were stopped because Segai came. He also wanted to use the capsule for himself. Segai and Ayose scrambled for the capsule. Suddenly the capsule bounced towards Shu's feet, who was already standing in front of them. Without thinking, Shuu injected the void genome into his body so that his king's power returned. This time he can take the void from within his own body so he can restore his lost arm. Then by borrowing void from his friends, he can kill Segai easily. It turns out that the power of Shuu this time is stronger. He can take the burden, darkness, and disease within the person. He also contracted the Apocolypse Virus because he used Sota's void, while Sota had recovered from the virus. It seemed that this was the fate that Shuu had to face. Sometime later, Guy announced to the whole world that he would again launch Lost Christmas Part 2. That's when the Apocolypse Virus could attack and spread to all corners of the world. Finally, all members of the organization unite to stop him. At the same time, Guy and Kato are talking at the GHQ headquarters. They discuss the creation of the Apocolypse Virus. It turns out that the people who researched the virus were Kato and Shu's father, Ouma Kurosu. Kurosu is a very genius scientist. One day, Kurosu's daughter, Mana, found a meteor that was the Apocalypse Virus's main source. That's why she became the first person to contract the virus. His wife died after giving birth to Shuu. Then he decided to devote himself to creating the void genome. Until finally, he meets Haruka there, who is Kato's younger sister. She treats all of his children like her own. While Kato chose another path, he decided to collect abandoned children and made it an experimental material. One of them was Guy. Kato, who feels unable to compete with Kurosu's genius mind, chooses to kill him during the first Lost Christmas. So even though Haruka is just a stepmother, they love each other. Before Shuu leaves for war, he collects Void from his friends and fights to win. Because if Shuu died, then all his friends would also be killed. But they trusted him so much that they gave their Void to him. With his friends' full support, Shuu set out to face Guy. But it turns out that it's not only him who wants to stop Guy. The UN troops have also surrounded Guy's headquarters. But Guy attacked the UN members using Kenji's, darts, and Arisa's Void, so that the entire UN army was destroyed in an instant. But Shuu and his friends still advanced to attack Guy and save Inori. Tsugumi started by remotely hacking their robotic system until it couldn't work anymore. Shuu easily gets into Guy's base. While inside the headquarters, it appears Guy is trying to awaken Mana's body using Inori. At that time, Inori despaired that she would not survive and thanked Guy for introducing her to Shuu, because after she spent time with Shuu, she could feel the feeling of falling in love. Then slowly, her memory began to disappear, and she gradually began to forget him. In her last moments, Inori started to sing a song. Shuu, looking for Inori's whereabouts, heard her voice. But just as he was about to head there, Dart came and blocked him. He challenges Shuu to a fight. He wants to know who is stronger between Shuu and Guy. But Shuu doesn't care about Dart's wishes. He just wants to save Inori. The battle finally started. Dart had prepared a line of people who he would use his Void. At first, Shuu found it difficult to fight Dart, but thanks to his Void combination, he managed to defeat Dart. After that, Dart chose to retreat and disappeared. Shuu returns to look for Inori's whereabouts until he finally finds her. But he is too late. Guy has managed to awaken Mana's body using her body. With the return of Mana, Part 2 of Lost Christmas finally begins. Mana's body emitted a mysterious purple light that enveloped the earth. After she saw Shuu, she immediately hugged him. She seemed to have missed him so much, but he pushed her body down. Instantly she remembered when he rejected her. It makes her furious. Not long after, Guy took Mana's Void and used it until the Apocalypse Virus finally spread worldwide. Shuu immediately stopped him until a fierce fight broke out between the two of them. Finally, Guy was able to push Shu's position. When Shuu started to despair, he saw that there was a flower on Inori's remains. Suddenly, her shadow appears from the flower, asking him to keep fighting. Even from the flower, he can take Inori's Void. So, with Inori's Void, Shuu can defeat Guy. On the other hand, Shu's mother also managed to stop Kato and the others. After Guy died, Mana's body disappeared, and Inori recovered. Unfortunately, she has been infected with the severe Apocalypse Virus, which can destroy her body. Shuu finally hugged her tightly. Then he uses his power to absorb all the viruses that have spread worldwide. And in the end, those who are infected can finally be cured. But Shuu had to sacrifice himself because all the viruses would lodge in his body. His body begins to be filled with the virus, but Inori tries to save him so that he can survive the virus. At the same time, the place was destroyed. His friends who watched the building crumble couldn't help but mourn. Several years have passed, Tokyo can return to normal, and life goes on as usual. It turned out that Shuu managed to survive the incident at that time, and he was reunited with his friends. Even though he still has to lose his hands and Inori, he still remembers Inori in his mind. The anime ends. The moral that can be learned is that sometimes to save many people, we must be willing to sacrifice ourselves and even those closest to us.